Hello, Kobo and Conversation listeners. I'm producer and co-host Nathan Maharaj, and I'm here with my co-host Michael Tamblyn for another installment of Booktalking, our series of conversations about stuff going on in the business of books. For this episode, we've got a very special guest. Nadia Oduayo is a software engineer, a reader, and the founder and CEO of the StoryGraph, which is a book tracking and recommendation app and website. Nadia, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be your guest today.
Oh, we're just so happy to have you. We've been fans for a while. To get things going, can you describe the StoryGraph so people can get an idea of really what this marvelous thing you've made is?
Okay, so how I like to describe the story graph, I like to use the vision that I had in my mind before the product was built. And that was you had this best friend who knew all about your reading tastes and your life. So they knew about your mood, but they also knew about all the books in the world so that they could make you the perfect recommendation. So that's like the essence of what we're always striving towards at Storygraph, being the place that it's just I'm going to find the next perfect book to fit my mood. But for the simplest, easiest explanation is that we are the main alternative to Goodreads.
We know a little bit about short form descriptions like that. That's that.
Yeah.
And was this an idea that had been percolating for a while? Where did that seed first start?
So it's funny how it first started because for the longest time, or for quite a few years, Goodreads was my favorite app. And I never
Mhm.
had the intention to build an alternative to Goodreads. In fact, Storygraph was a side project that was only meant to be a companion app to Goodreads. So I first had the idea back in, oh, it would have been 20, I don't know, 2014, 15, around the time when I started to learn to code. And I was using Goodreads and I used it very simply. So all the pain points that people had with Goodreads, I didn't really feel them because I would just find the book I was reading, mark it as currently reading. When I finished, I didn't even write text reviews. I just added my star rating, didn't even care about fractional star ratings, and I moved into the next one. So I didn't even really feel pain points with Goodreads. I was like, this is fantastic. It does what I need to do. But there was one thing it didn't do that I really wished it did, which was at the time when I was using Goodreads, the lists were public and collaborative. So there were these large lists that everyone could contribute to, and the tags were kind of public. And what I really wanted to do was create some smaller, more private lists or lists that I could share with maybe one, two, three people, and then see my progress through those lists on a pretty dashboard. And so
Mhm.
that was what the original app was. And the first version I built, the very, very first version of this app, you actually had to sign into your Goodreads. Like I used the Goodreads
Mhm.
API. And so you had to sign into your Goodreads and then it would pull in your shelves and then you could make more that way and just see a dashboard. Something that's actually very similar to our reading challenges dashboard today. So I didn't intend to build a whole alternative, but what happened was the time when I started to really be able to work on this side project in earnest was 2019. And at that time, I didn't have any other job and I had a lot of runway from a previous consulting contract that I had. So
Mhm.
I was just tinkering away at this side project. And it was the most fulfilled that I ever felt as a developer. So I really was like, okay, I need to find a way to work in books full time as a developer. And so that's when I said, right, I can't just build this side project. I need to actually test if it's a product that more people want, or if not, find a product that more people want. So I started doing customer interviews. I started with friends that I knew who read, and then I asked them to introduce me to people. And I spent 3 months just talking to people.
Mhm.
And I realized I never brought up Goodreads. They all did. So they all brought up their pain points. And I thought, well, I'm going to try and solve these pain points. Again, I still wasn't thinking I'm going to build the alternative to Goodreads. I just thought, well, I'm just going to try and look at these things that people are complaining about. And then I just essentially kept on iterating and iterating. And eventually it was like, oh, okay, I have built an alternative to Goodreads.
And was there a moment where it went from being a companion app to being, essentially a full-fledged replacement where you had to decide that you were going to take that step over and start replicating a whole bunch of functionality that otherwise you didn't have to do before? And like, was there a deep breath where you went, okay, I guess we're in this now?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So one of the reasons for the longest time, I didn't want to say that I am building an alternative to Goodreads, and I didn't for years, is because I didn't want to fall into the trap of just trying to do Goodreads but better. So that
Hmm.
was so even people years before I said it were saying this is an alternative to Goodreads. And I fought against that. One, because of that trap. I didn't want to say, well, then I'm not just going to be innovative and think about what people actually need. And I'm just going to look at Goodreads and do how do I do that better? And that was not enough of a differentiator. But also, if I started calling us an alternative to Goodreads, people would sign up to the app with the expectation that we would have all this functionality we didn't have, and then they'd be
Hmm.
disappointed and leave. And being a one-person dev team, things took time. So for the longest time, I just was like, we're a reading, tracking, and recommendations app. Our niche is that you find books by mood. In my mind, I was like, in some years, we might be seen as that, but I don't even want to think about that. The reason when and then because of the way I build the product, it's just continually iterative. So since 2019, I've always just been continually building on top of the same code base. So it's always just been gradual. There's never been a right. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just heads down and I'm just going to build this like Goodreads
Hmm.
replacement. That because I also think that's a bad way to build product, and maybe we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
So I've never done that. But there was a moment marketing wise where I said, right, we're doing this. And this is when, so there was no way to pay on the app, and we don't have ads, and we plan to hopefully never have ads. But we needed a way to make money because our server costs were costing us thousands of dollars a month.
Hmm.
And if this was all funded by my savings, and then when Rob came on board, his savings. And so we needed a way to make money. And so I floated the premium, a StoryGraph Plus. I just made it up and I just said, hey, these features, we're going to build them if we get enough pre-orders. And I just made up some like advanced add-ons to features we already had.
Hmm.
And then anytime someone pre-ordered, that was $30. Anytime someone pre-ordered, we sent them a survey that said, why did you sign up? Which feature grabbed your attention? And the overwhelming majority of responses said, I didn't care about the features. I just want to support an indie alternative to Goodreads. And so at that point, I said, we just have to own this now. And that's why on our
Hmm.
marketing page, we have Amazon free alternative to Goodreads. That was the switch. It was never within the product, but it was in our marketing.
Can you tell me a little bit about sort of who the user is when you're sitting down to do your software development? Do you have a person in mind? Do you, or are there a set of different kinds of users that you're kind of trying to keep front of mind?
Yes, I think the user has changed as the product has grown. So I think in the early days, there was one particular user. And then now, as the product is more mature, there are different segments of users based on the feature I'm building. So in the earliest of days, the niche that I found was mood readers. And
Mm-hmm.
originally, I was kind of concerned about this because I did not classify myself as a mood reader. I classified myself as a planner reader. I list the books I'm going to read in the month. I have a general sense of the books I'm going to read and I read them. So and I think in one of my earliest newsletters, because I've been writing my newsletter since 2019, I wrote about this. I said, is this a problem that I'm building a product where I don't identify as the core user, but I see a gap in the market for mood readers? Because a lot of them are saying, I want to find a book that makes me feel like this or is in this mood, or I pick up 5 books and I read the first paragraph and then I decide. And then when
Hmm.
I was coming out with the mood filters and the pace filters, everyone was like, finally an app for me. As I've developed the product, my hypothesis came to be everyone's a mood reader. It just depends on like how you're picking your book or in what mood you're in, and so that shifted. But then as we've become more mature, I look at my users in segments. So for example,
Hmm.
I never built StoryGraph to be an app that you use every day, but yet we would get messages on social media of people being like, I love StoryGraph, I use it every day. So I said, okay, I want to discover who is the StoryGraph power user. Can I improve the app for them? So I did a bunch of customer interviews and I found out the power users were people who read 1 to X books a week. And every time they finished a book, they went and deep dived into their stats. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, the power users use stats. And that is why I added more charts on the stats, but then I also eventually transitioned our plus plan to be stats only, because that way it freed up more of the social community features for everybody.
Hmm.
But then it meant that, okay, the people who are paying us, because we're not trying to build the app so that people feel that they need to pay. We never want anyone to feel like they need to pay, but we do need some people to pay. And so we're like, okay, let's incentivize our power users, the people who are so into the stats, be the ones that have the option to pay. So I've got this bracket of power users who are obsessed with their stats. Another segment of users that I had to cater to, which was not something I had previously engaged with, were audiobook listeners. So I had never listened to audiobooks, mainly because I anytime I was listening to something, it was either a podcast or music. So I felt like I didn't have space for audio, and I also didn't think audio was the format I wanted to experience books in. But I would have people saying, can we have proper audiobook tracking? Can we do this or that? And Libro reached out with their advanced listener copy program. And I said, ooh, this would be a great way for me to become an audio book reader so that I could also understand my audio listeners. And as soon as I did that, I started to understand more about their pain points. And then we've developed, loads of audio first features for our audio listeners to do with like tracking minutes goals for the year, things like that.
Was there ever a point where it became very clear to you that there was a feature to build, there was a segment to serve, there was a most desired thing that they wanted, and you looked at that and went, "Oh my God, I can't possibly, I don't know how to do that at all."
I'm pausing because I feel, first of all, I feel quite, in terms of, because there's technical feasibility,
Yeah,
and then there's like, do I want to do that in the product?
because
Yeah.
you're both CEO and CTO and sole
Yeah,
developer. Yeah.
exactly. I'm the person doing the customer
Yeah.
research.
Do I want to go down this road? Yeah.
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 So I feel like because we're a book tracking app, the features that people have asked for, I don't think there's ever been one that I'm like, that is not technically feasible. Often because there are things that have been done before, but we'd be doing them in a different way. Like, I guess even if I think of our unique features like buddy reads, things like that, where they're our unique feature, but we like the concepts. This idea that when you get to this percentage or this page in a book, you can leave a comment and it's locked. Like the technical bare bones aren't that complicated. I think it's more, do we want to go down this road? Is this, I don't want to have an app where it does so many things and then people don't know. And something we've always grappled with are social features,
Hmm.
commenting and things like that. And we're on the cusp of finally allowing people to comment on reviews and newsfeed updates.
Is this
And
breaking news? Did you just break news on our
I broke
podcast?
it. I broke it 2 days ago on Instagram, on Instagram stories. So it will be old news. And it was funny
Okay.
because I was writing my newsletter yesterday, and I'd done an Instagram story where I said, "Hey everyone, this is what's coming up next," and I listed 4 features. And then in my newsletter, I was listing these same 4 features, but I was wanting to link them to roadmap posts. So I typed in one in Google. I just go Google roadmap.thestorygraph.com, name of feature. And I did that. And this Reddit post popped up at the top that had the 4 features that I'd listed in order, like 15 hours ago. And I was like, and I clicked on it and it was like, Nadia just announced this on Instagram stories. And I'm like, wow, like obviously it's public, but it's just funny how it's like there are people watching everywhere and they're gonna go post it on other places. And there's been a whole discussion of it. And one of the things, which was my concern, is people were going, oh no, I hate that they're gonna bring comments. This is what I
Hmm.
loved about StoryGraph. Goodreads, it's horrible over there. People are mean and all this. Now, the thing that people haven't don't necessarily know is how we're going to implement it and also the how intentional we're going to be about it, because I am aware there's a reason why we haven't done them yet,
Hmm.
but there's also a reason why we feel we need to do it now. So the reason why we haven't done them and why I've been very hesitant is for the reasons that people say. So for me, especially in the earliest days, small development team, once you introduce comments, before there's so much stuff you have to introduce around it, moderation,
Hmm.
Mhm.
blocking, it's going to cause, there are issues that you have to think about all around it. And I'm thinking as a one-person dev team, um, I don't necessarily want all that work right now because any app can have commenting. That can
Hmm.
always be added. But especially in the earliest years of StoryGraph, where there are so many Goodreads alternatives and reading trackers, I need to focus on what makes us different. And that's what I need to focus on. Now we've being used by millions of users and we're like the main Goodreads alternative. But what we hear every day is, I love it, but my friends
Hmm.
aren't on it. I can't talk to my friends. It gets to the point where I can't, I don't want to just say, we're not doing comments because we're not going to be just another social media app, which has always been my line.
Mm.
What I need to say is, okay, we lot reading as much as it is solitary, some of the best parts about reading is discussing it with people that you want to discuss books with. So the
Hmm.
question is, how do we do it differently and with a lot of thought? So for example, comments are going to be off by default, and there will be a setting where you can go, I don't even want to know comments exist. So if you don't toggle anything, you won't even, unless you'll see you'll see the one push notification when it goes live. You'll see stuff on social media, but in the app, you won't even know comments exist if you don't do anything beyond
Yep.
dismiss the pop-up.
That feels like the default author setting
Oh yeah.
should be like I was just like authors suffer so much on Goodreads.
Yes.
It would be nice to just sterilize it all of like comments. Yeah.
Yeah, if we want to talk about hot takes later, I have a hot take on
Okay.
that. But anyway, um,
I'd love to get a sense, you've talked about this big focus on talking to users, you're asking people questions all the time, you're in dialogue with different kinds of users. How does how do the decisions get made? It's in the end, you're the one that has to write the code. You're the CEO, like you get to decide. But do you have a process or a methodology or like something in your head that helps you filter out all of the requests that are coming from everybody down to the one that you actually start working on next?
yes. So when I'm doing proper customer research rounds, I have a very strict process. So I try and do rounds of, I'll come up with a hypothesis and a script. So it'll be like, what am I trying to find out? And so therefore, what are my questions? And it might be something that involves a clickable prototype. Most of my interviews have not because they're just asking behavioral questions about using the app or just behavioral questions about reading to build a feature that doesn't exist. So then I will record those interviews, always at the permission of the person I'm interviewing. And I always say, this is not being shared anywhere. This is just for me to watch it back later so I can give my 100% focus to the conversation. After that, I will watch. In the earliest days, I used to do them all, but now we have Abby. Now, I mean, Abby's worked with me since the first year, but Abby, I eventually brought her on to help me do this, which is watch them back and write out bullet points of every point they say as word for word as possible. Again, so I'm not trying to put my spin on what I think they said. I just do like literal quotes. Then I take those and I put them on virtual post-it notes. So each person has a color. Then I group them all up into themes. And then I put headings on those themes. And then I move those into like a Google sheet or Excel sheet. And I put the learnings in order. And I picked this up from a product focused designer, one of my really good friends, Ali Blanken. And she told me originally when she was showing me ways to do customer research that 3 or more people is a good thing to like, is a good marker for let me pay attention to this point. And then obviously depending on customer research rounds. So I have some rounds where the smallest number of significance is like 5 or 8, depending on the points.
Mhm.
And so then I order them in number of times mentioned, number of people who said it. And then I say, what are my learnings from that?
Mhm.
Mm.
That's a very structured customer research round of deciding. But things like adding comments, I don't need to do a video interviews on that. I know the
Mm.
core of it. I just need to sense check. Hey, these are the settings we're thinking about. This is how it's going to work. Anything we've missed.
With that process, has it ever steered you wrong? Have you ever kind of gone through that process, done the work, and then went, oh, this didn't land at all like I thought it would?
It's funny you say that. The one time something went wrong and we reversed it immediately was when Rob pitched a new idea for me for recommendations. And I was like, that sounds great. We deployed it and all these complaints all these complaints came in and we reverted it. So anytime I've done my process properly, it has never steered us wrong. And it
Uh,
takes a long time, but it works. There was this one time back in the day where Rob said, wouldn't it be, instead of people having to fill out this survey, shouldn't they just have like a free text box where they just go as if they're talking to that friend, Nadia, that you're always talking about, and they just type in and they're just like, I would like a book. It's almost like they've gone into a bookshop. And so we just deployed it. I got so excited. I was like, yes, this is so amazing. Let's do that. And what's so fascinating is it's not like anybody had been complaining about the recommendations before. We didn't really hear anything. But when we
Hmm.
changed it, all these complaints. What have you done? This is awful. I don't know what to type in this box. Da 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 da. And it was a
no.
good experience to go through because one, it proved to Rob that, oh, okay, that thing that Nadia does that takes ages is worth it. But also it was a good thing for me too to realize, okay, yeah, there is this process is it takes time, but it really is worth it. And it was also just a good experience to go through, right? To say that sometimes no news is good news. Like just because people aren't complaining
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're not happy, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So a lot of
Yeah.
people, we
Yeah.
just thought, oh, the recommendations, we need to do something more because people aren't talking about them.
Yeah.
But they were happy with them, so we didn't need to change it.
Yeah. Happy users can often be distressingly quiet.
Yeah.
So, talking about happiness and sadness,
Hmm.
what does a great day at StoryGraph look like?
A great day of StoryGraph. First of all, at least 3 hours of focused coding. If I get three, it doesn't matter what else happens in my day. If I get 3 hours of focus coding, I feel so productive. I've actually struggled recently because it's wedding season, it's the summer, holidays, and I've just I found it really hard to lock into my coding. And being a one person dev team, I feel bad. I feel like I've done no work. And I could be doing emails and other things around running the company, but I haven't looked into coding. And it's so funny because people remind me, I beat myself up if I haven't delivered something in a couple weeks. And people remind me, they say, but Nadia, like, we haven't got anything new on Goodreads in years. And I'm always like, oh yeah, like why am I beating myself up when I've done so much this year already? And these are really good reminders for me because I can be so hard on myself.
So, let me ask the inverse then. What's a bad day look like?
Bad day is when, as soon as I wake up at 6 a.m., my phone rings because there's an issue, but Rob is like, I don't need to wake her up. So I'm going to wake her up at 6 a.m. And it's almost, sometimes I'd almost rather he woke me up in the middle of the night so that because I have my morning routine. So Rob calls me at 6 a.m. like, okay, now you're awake. This is what's been happening the last few hours. I tried to handle it. It didn't work. So now already my day I'm already like, okay. I'm at the mercy of this bug and hopefully I can fix it. And it's always these kind of issues. It's always someone trying to spam us, take us
Hmm.
down. And it's so frustrating because it's like, why? Why us? There are so many other organizations that you could go for. Why are you going for us, an indie small book app? You know
Right.
what I mean? So that just annoys me.
So part of what brings us together here is we recently launched an integration between Kobo and StoryGraph. So Kobo users are going to automatically track their reading in StoryGraph.
Love it.
We got really interested in StoryGraph for a bunch of reasons. Yeah, people were coming at me all the time on social media, like in a nice way, asking, can we make a connection? I'd love to not have to, track these things by, kind of manually. And as you were saying, like, I would like to leave Goodreads. The thing that's keeping me here is that there's a connection between my e-reader
Hmm.
and, and the Goodreads service. So is there a way to create an automatic connection to let me pass my reading in progress from the e-reader to StoryGraph? And then, and that was how the StoryGraph came to our attention. And then we started digging into it, and we find this beautiful software experience and
Oh.
this, just this thing that feels, I don't know how to describe it, like spiritually similar to what we're trying to do with Kobo. Yeah, there's a friendliness and there's this kind of welcoming quality to it that I really love. Um, and that's what started us talking. But the response to it has been amazing. Like,
Yeah.
people are really, really excited about this, and I'm kind of interested how that's been from your side of things. I mean, we did all of the work to kind of stitch the two things together, and you've been amazing to work with. But how's the response been for StoryGraph users?
Yeah, similar to you. We've been hearing about this for years, and obviously I've thought about it before because so when I started StoryGraph, I was a Kindle user. Again, I didn't come at this whole thing from I need to
Mhm.
divest from Amazon. That was not how I started any of this. And so I was using my Kindle. And actually, the reason why I first bought a Kobo is if you scroll to the earliest posts on the StoryGraph Instagram, I'm posting my Kindle because I'm reading books on my Kindle. And people started to call me out saying, how could you be using a Kindle when you're an anti-Amazon alternative?
You're like, I am?
Exactly, because I did not start the product that way. So I was like, huh. And I said to myself, well, Kobo exists. So I should get a Kobo because even though that's not how I started this product, we do have a core group of users that are anti-Amazon. So let me try that out. So I bought a Kobo and I was like, this is great. I love it. Also, going around with my Kobo, the first Kobo I bought was a Kobo Clara black and white. So compact, love it.
Hmm.
I would go take it all around the world with me. The number of people that said, hey, what model of Kindle is that? All over the world. Because they were like, it's so compact, it looks so nice. And I would always say, it's not a Kindle, it's a Kobo. And then I would hear through all my customer research. So there were a few things that would say, this is why I'm on Goodreads. A few main ones. One was my friends. The other big one was Kindle Goodreads. I don't even go on Goodreads. It just automatically does it for me. And I
Hmm.
just thought, well, I don't know how we're going to solve, originally, I don't know how we're going to solve that one because Amazon are not going to let us integrate in the same way. And then when I started using Kobo very early, I was like, ooh, wouldn't this be a dream to be in Kobo? Wow. But I mean, 2019, 2020, 2021, the product had so far to go for that to even be something that we could even accommodate. It's been so funny because when we first had one of our earliest conversations, Michael, I mentioned how it was so funny that people kept on tagging us on threads like we didn't know of one another, like at all, and that we hadn't thought about it.
And they're just like jamming these two things together. It's
You
like
guys should
you two
talk.
should talk.
We were getting shipped. We were getting shipped so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone was like, have you thought about this? And it was just like, not saying anything.
Yeah.
Silence. And then obviously we had the conversations, and then we saw so quickly through conversations with you, Michael, through conversations with your product team. We were very excited to work with you just the way that you were excited to work with us. And it's just been so awesome, like you said, to have two companies that are so aligned in vision, like spiritually aligned or in the essence of what we're trying to do. And what we've got now is literally just V1 of the integration.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I see so many things coming in the coming years, um, like that are more advanced, that are span more than just what's the word? Currently
Yeah.
reading, finished. So we've got lots, and if people are this excited, and again, the response has been amazing, overwhelmingly positive. Any of the negative comments are mainly either like people understanding, okay, I understand why this is a limitation, or being like,
Mhm.
I wish it also worked with these types of books, all that, but they understand why it doesn't. And so
Hmm.
it's been just incredibly overwhelmingly positive. And that's what I was hoping for and suspecting. And it's so cool to see that realized. And also just so how cool, no one is really, we have bigger visions for the integration. And we've had a couple of, ooh, could it do this? Could it do that? But most people are not even asking for more. They're just so
Hmm.
happy with what they've got now.
They'll get there. Give it
They'll get
Yeah,
give them a few
yeah.
months. But one of the things that really struck me as we were first talking was your vision for the StoryGraph as a company and how you run it. Because of course, when we're looking at, hey, we want to connect this, this thing that we've built to this thing that you've built, the question becomes, okay, is that company going to be around? Is it going to get bought by somebody else? Is it going to turn into some other weird thing? So, and one of the things that I found just most compelling was you had this very crisp, very clear sense of what you wanted the story graph to be. And I'd love you to kind of articulate a little bit of that because it's kind of the essence of bootstrap startup as an ethos.
I see StoryGraph as my life's work.
Hmm.
And when you asked me earlier what makes a great day, what makes a bad day. And I didn't have anything complicated, and I said every day is different. People often think that they assume, oh, Nadia is really intense. She works, she probably does all-nighters all the time. She's just hardcore working all the time, all that. And I am a very ambitious, hardworking person, but I know that I'm in this for the long run. So I'm set up my life so that I'm not burning out. So people say like, oh, you don't really go on holidays. Like even when I'm on holiday, I'll do a bit of coding. It's because I want to. I've set up my life and designed my life so that I can keep doing this for as long as I am like able. And I can keep having fun. And I've been nowhere near burnout. And I've been very intentional about that.
Yeah. I I have to ask because we're talking about managing books, and I need to know what kind of a reader are you? We've already established that audiobooks are not close to your heart, or they haven't been, but tell me what do you reach for when it's time when you have time for reading?
So first of all, I'm a very eclectic reader, and now I read across all three formats.
Love it.
Also, my thing has changed. I was a heavy digital only user until the pandemic. So when I was younger, school obviously books, like
Yeah.
physical books. Then when I went to just before university or whatever, I had my Kindle and I read all digitally. Pandemic hit and I was got back into books again because sitting at home, my big books, I would just love it. And so now I go between all three, and I figured out what I love on audio. So what I love on audio are memoirs, often by the author,
Okay.
because
First person narration.
they're telling the story.
Yeah.
They're telling their story. You're listening to them tell their story. Amazing. Also, thrillers, because often they're not necessarily the best written books, but
Yeah.
it's like entertainment in my ears. And it's like when I'm
Yeah.
doing chores, when I'm going for a walk. And also, when you listen to a thriller, you don't see when the cliffhanger chapter's coming.
Mm.
You don't accidentally, your eye doesn't accidentally stray to the next page and you're like, oh, someone's in the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah, you don't know when the last line hits you of a chapter.
Exactly.
You're just like, what do you mean it's a new chapter? What do you mean we're changing points
Yeah,
of view?
yeah. Also, I've gotten into recently listening, the immersive reading thing, listening while reading on the page. Because
Hmm.
it's a new type of lock-in. It's like a so that's again something that I picked up from my users, and I've been trying it, and
Huh.
it's super interesting. But high level, I'm an eclectic reader.
Yeah.
So I read fiction and nonfiction. I would say I'm about 40% nonfiction, the rest fiction.
Hmm.
With fiction, I read everything. So my top genres are um I guess literary fantasy, used to be historical fiction. I will read or listen to the odd thriller. I've gotten into horror in the recent years, again, just through seeing like Stephen King fans. And so then I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I read one of his when I was younger. Let's check that out. I've gotten into romance. I used to
Oh,
think, oh, romance is not for me, and love the odd romance read.
yeah.
So I read all sorts. And then nonfiction, my favorite is narrative nonfiction. So give
Okay.
me a Patrick Radden Keefe, a Michael
Yes.
Lewis.
Have you learned anything about yourself as a reader from StoryGraph?
I always thought I didn't realize how much of a fantasy reader I was until I looked at my StoryGraph stats. When I saw the green fantasy line at the top, I was like, oh, okay, so I guess I love fantasy.
StoryGraph doesn't lie.
StoryGraph is a lie.
So that same thing happened to me. I did not know what a science fiction reader I was
Yeah.
until I pushed all of my current reading into StoryGraph. I was like, there it is at the top of the graph. And I, so my theory, based on nothing, is the books that you just blow through really quickly don't
Yeah.
register as significantly as reading events in your life. But when you
Yeah.
stack them all up, it's like, okay, there they are. And
Yeah.
so that was the eye opener for me when we actually got the connection together, was seeing those like kind of quick casual reads and how they add up over time. Yeah, it was
Yes.
fascinating.
So I always used to say I didn't like short stories.
Mm.
And then I interviewed someone for a StoryGraph Instagram Live show. And while doing research on the short story form, I started to question this idea of not liking short stories, because I remember thinking, what's a short story? Like a friend will come and say, oh, have I got a story for you? And they'll tell you a short little story, a short bit of gossip. And that's how like
Mm.
humans operate in general. You're always sharing short stories. So then I changed my mind and I was thinking, maybe it's just that I haven't found a short story collection for me. And then a friend started a 24 in 20, I think it was 24 short stories in 2024. I
Hmm.
think that was what it was. And I joined this challenge and I read 24 short story collections and I didn't find a 5-star one, but I had a great time. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's lots here. So I think the challenges has also opened me up to different types of books as well. So short stories being one, short story collections. Now,
Amazing.
such that I haven't read one, I don't think I've read one this year, and I'm itching to read one. So
Yeah.
the
Well,
challenges have opened my eyes.
there's a couple short story collections in the Kobo and Conversation Reading Challenge, which I'll have a link to in the show
There we
notes.
go.
But Nadia, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for making the story graph.
Thank you, and thank you for making Kobo and for getting the ball rolling such that we could work together. It's a dream come true.
It is.
Totally is.
It's been so good.
Kobo and Conversation will be back with more author interviews very soon. And in the meantime, you can check out our reading challenge. I'm just going to keep plugging it. It's on StoryGraph. It's got books by all the authors we've spoken to. And guess what? There's a couple in there that we haven't spoken to yet. So if you want to see what's coming, the link is in the show notes. This has been Book Talking on Kobo in Conversation with me, Nathan Maharaj.
And me, Michael Tamblyn.
Thank you for listening.